Hi, welcome to my channel Cloud with Girish. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate a revision of previously published workshop on how to build a serverless GenAI solution to create call center transcript summary via a REST API, Lambda and Bedrock-converse API, and protect the sensitive information like PII using guardrail policy. On July 10, 2024, during the AWS New York Summit, AWS announced the introduction of the Apply Guardrail feature for its generative AI services. Amazon Bedrock, already a standout service in the AWS lineup, gains further flexibility with this new feature, allowing developers to decouple the guardrail from large language model invocation using Bedrock. In June 2024, AWS added support for guardrails via the Converse API. However, a challenge I encountered was that guardrail policies were being applied to both input and response. With additional code for guard content, I was able to accomplish the desired result. However, it was additional line of code to meet the use case requirements. Here is a link to my previous video on how to apply guardrail using the Converse API to protect PII information. The newly announced Apply Guardrail function empowers developers with more control over how best to implement guardrails when invoking the Bedrock API. This feature ensures that based on the guardrail policy, if an input is blocked, developers can return a response before Bedrock is even invoked. This approach not only enhances security but also optimizes efficiency by saving unnecessary calls to the foundation model. This enhancement marks a significant step forward in the customization and control developers have over their AI application, ensuring safer and more efficient interaction with generative AI model. In this video, I have updated my previous published content and code to demonstrate how the Apply Guardrail feature can be used to protect PII information from a transcript summary generated using Amazon Bedrock, Lambda, and API. Let's look at our business use case. I have made slight revision to the use case also. So while we have a transcript available for case resolution and conversation between customer and support, and all other point around use case remain the same, where we need to create a call summary and automated solution via API and guardrail configured, etc. I have also added a point that guardrail will also be applied to input. If input contains block data element like account number, then API will not invoke the LLM and return the initial response to the consumer. I will be creating the Lambda function via infrastructure as code approach using AWS Server Application Framework and CloudFormation. However, you can create the Lambda function using the AWS console as well. This is the architecture, pretty straightforward. We have a consumer that's invoking the API via API gateway, passing the call center transcript as a prompt, is getting consumed by a Lambda function that is invoking the Bedrock using the Converse API. There is a guardrail configured, and this is where like the subtle difference comes in the use case, because now there is a apply guardrail function, so you can apply the guardrail to the input prompt, as well as separately I can apply the guardrail to the response being generated by LLM. In both the case, I can pick the message being written via the API to the invoking consumer. In terms of prereq, just need the familiarity with AWS console, the transcript of the resolution conversation, knowledge of Python Boto 3, knowledge of Lambda, and basic familiarity with generative AI foundation model concept, basic familiarity with Bedrock Guardrail. This is our steps here. So we'll review the Bedrock service, the foundation model, Converse API, guardrail, and also the Apply Guardrail. We of course need to have the model access, and there are playgrounds and few terms, and then the key of it is the SAM template. Since I'm using the infrastructure as code approach for my Lambda function. So we'll build it using the AWS SAM, and then I will use Postman to validate the model responses. Again, the Bedrock is fully managed service, offers choice of many foundation model, Anthropic, Cloud, AI21, Stability, Titan, others. I'll be using Anthropic. Bedrock is a serverless offering from Amazon. It allows integrating with popular foundation model and also allow to privately customize, fine-tune your own data using AWS tools. A lot of feature and functionality available here. A quick recap of what Converse API is and why it's needed. It's a relatively new API call as of late May 2024. So you might be wondering why there is a need for another when Bedrock already had invoking model for large language model. Well, the challenge was that when you use the invoke model, you have to customize the parameter for each underlying foundation model. Converse API actually address this challenge, and there is a consistent approach to invoke the underlying foundation model. It will also allow for unique parameter if needed, and this is a new API, really simplify the approach to call the underlying foundation model. Guardrail, very neat feature. I would say that it's a must-have feature if you are looking to implement a GenAI solution, because it provides you control or the guardrails around your prompt, your response that's being generated and shared with the consumer. So let's look at, like, these guardrails actually, make it a safer AI, and in the next slide, I want to show you the different policy that you can configure. So there are multiple filters here. There are content filters. So content filters are across 6 categories: the hate, the insult, the sexual, the violence, the misconduct, prompt attack. So it can be configured. Filter can be set to like none, low, medium, high. And then there are denied topic filters. So you can put a topic there, and if that topic is put in the denied topic, then the Bedrock will deny the response for that specific topic. Could be anything. Really, the depends on your use case. If you are in the financial industry, you can deny a topic like, hey, don't provide a balance in your checking account, or don't provide your checking account number. If somebody is applying for a credit card, do not show them the credit score. If you are in a medical field, then you can restrict it based on that, hey, don't reveal the prescription or any other of those topics. And then there are world filter, sensitive information filter. This is the one that I am using for this workshop. This is to block or mask the PII information. So we'll configure this, and I'm actually configuring, it can be configured through console, but I'm configuring it through infrastructure as code approach as well, just to simplify and speed up the execution here. Again, Apply Guardrail, a quick recap, is really new, really like 48 hours back when AWS announced it, July 10. During the AWS New York Summit, they announced the Apply Guardrail feature for the Generative AI, and this is already a standout service, but really the Apply Guardrail allow the developers to decouple the guardrail from large language model. And that's really what I have done in this workshop. I already had guardrail with Converse API, but it was very integrated in my invocation call. And now I have separated it by having a guardrail apply to my prompt. Then I call the model if I want to. And then once I get the response back, then I'm applying the guardrail on the response before passing it back to the consumer. Choice of foundation models, AI21, Amazon, Anthropic, like I said, multiple model to pick from, and that's really the strength of Bedrock API. that you can really switch the model, you can pick different models, and that those are the features that AWS keep adding to the generative AI suite. We of course have to request the model. So in my case, I already have access to Cloud Heku, and that's the one that I will be using. There is a playground, but I will not be using it. But it's really neat to try out your generative AI solution here. Will not go over in detail around these key terms. I have these are in my previous workshop also, but temperature, top P, max token count, some of the key inference parameters that need to be passed to the API. Let's look at the SAM template. So very similar to how I have done in the past, there are two resources here. One is the RESTful API and one is the Lambda function. And then I am using the environment variable to make sure that I have the flexibility to change the model just by updating the model ID. In this case, I'll be using the Anthropic Cloud. So that's the one that I'm going to use. And then I have my max token count 2000. And then I have some policy permissions defined. This is where the real change is when it comes to the apply guardrail function in compared to my previous workshop on the guardrail. So here I'm generating the guardrail using the code approach, and then I have a generate conversation function here. And if you see here, this is where the difference is. Once I have my input prompt, I'm applying the guardrail to that input prompt, and I will get a response back that if it is, a blocked data element there or not. And based on that response, I can decide that if I want to go ahead and invoke the LLM model or just give the message back to the consumer. If I do invoke the LLM model, then once I get the response back, I can actually apply the guardrail on the output as well. And then I can then pass the final output to the consumer. So that's really like, a neat way to decouple applying the guardrail with the actual invoke call that call the large language model. Subtle difference, we have invoke model from Bedrock, the original method, and then we have Bedrock Converse API that we can invoke. Like I said, the Converse API provide a consistent way to invoke the API, and you can switch the model uh, if you desired just by changing the model ID. You do need to have the latest Boto 3 to use the Converse API, and then build command are the standard AWS SAM build command. By now, if you are following me on YouTube, you probably have seen it. I use this command almost for every workshop where I'm using Lambda. I really like to use the infrastructure as code approach, the SAM approach for Lambda. So SAM build the code, local invoke allow me to test the function locally even before I deploy it to the cloud, and then I can deploy it to the cloud. And once I have it, I like to use Postman to validate the output that I'm getting. So here in this scenario, because now I have applied guardrail, it really makes the code very clean and decouple. So here are three different responses that I have. So the first one is where I'm getting a masked response. So my sensitive info policy is basically like saying, hey, mask this information like account number and address and so on. So if you see here, the US bank account number is masked here. Also, there is a zip code that's also like considered part of address. So it has been masked in the response. Email is not masked because I did not specify email, just to show an example here. And so this is really like how I'm getting a mask. And then I extracted the information that what has been intervened, and you can see the US bank account number and address. Those are the two from this input prompt or the response prompt that has been masked here. I can also, like I said, apply the guardrail separately to the input, and I did that after updating the policy where I updated the US bank account number rather than mask. I marked it blocked, And then when I execute the API again, my input get guardrail applied, and then I get the response that, hey, your input contains sensitive information and cannot be processed. And at this point, my foundation model has not been invoked. So I have this message and I can choose, depending on how my application flow is, I can take this message and provide it back to the consumer that, hey, can process this information. The third information here is really like, again, the response and output, and based on the block, as opposed to the first one was masked, but this is the block. So similar to like, input, if you see here, the output message is saying, hey, the model response contains sensitive information and it has been redacted. So this is, again, the guardrail has intervened and has prevented providing the information back because it was containing a blocked data element. This is our CloudWatch log, the logging that we have control over through our Lambda function. So really similar information that I just showed in the response. So with this workshop, a serverless GenAI solution to create call center transcript summary via REST API, Lambda and AWS Bedrock-Converse API has been successfully completed. The Amazon Bedrock Guardrail has been configured to protect PII information, and Apply Guardrail, which is a new feature, was applied to demonstrate how both input and response data can be protected using the guardrail. Python Boto 3 were used to invoke the Bedrock-converse API with Anthropic Haiku. As GenAI solutions continue to evolve, they are set to reshape a traditional workflow and drive tangible benefit across industry. This workshop serves as a compelling example of the transformative power of AI technology in addressing real-world challenges and unlocking new opportunities for innovation. Hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. I'm working on some other interesting content on various AWS topics. These will be posted soon. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.